Hello everyone, it's Matt here, back again today to talk to you about the new Death Grips album, Year of the Snitch. So yeah, my A-levels are done now, thank goodness, and I'm going to be making a few more videos this summer, and there's been plenty of releases so far this year that I need to catch up on, be it the new Kanye album, the new Beach House album, the new Kali Uchis album. I certainly want to say a few things about that. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff to come out, but today I want to talk about the new Death Grips album, Year of the Snitch, which is the 8th album, I do believe, by Sacramento-based band Death Grips, featuring MC Ride as the band's lead vocalist and angry guy who just shouts at everyone. But he's a lad. He's a great guy. I love MC Ride. Along with Zach Hill on drums, who is known for beating the absolute crap out of his drum kit, and producer Flatlander, aka Andy Morin, who does all the keyboards. But according to Death Grips, everyone contributes to every phase of the creative process when writing their music, so the lines are kind of blurred, but that's what they will do live and everything like that. But obviously Zach Hill is known for being a producer as well of his solo stuff and the stuff with Hella and the ILYs, which he does with Andy Morin. They've been known for making some crazy experimental music. I made a video about them last year where I didn't know anything about them. I only just got into Death Grips about a year ago really now. And I listened to The Money Store, which is their most famous album, for the first time, and really enjoyed it. And they've really grown on me as a band since then. I've made my way through their entire discography and become a real fan of their work. They're coming to the UK, which I'm very pleased about and hoping to get tickets for. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about Death Grips, really. But there's so much to them. They're a very complex, intricate band with a lot of mystery to them. They don't really do any interviews or anything like that, and especially MC Ride, who has a real enigma about himself. And they're mostly famous for their style of sort of experimental hip-hop, but this varies on every album that they release. 2011's Ex-Military was very much known for being mainly a hip-hop album, at least from Death Grips, with songs like Tachyon being very sort of hard-hitting, angry, shouty hip-hop. And The Money Store sort of refined that and really brought the band to a wider audience with much more accessible songs like Get Got and I've Seen Footage and The Fever. And they went in a much darker direction with No Love Deep Web, which is famous for having a massive picture of Zach Hill's erect penis on its cover. But it's a good album. It's a great album. I enjoy it very much. And yeah, and then they went and did other things with Government Plates and The Powers That Be, which was a double-part album, one half consisting of sort of a 30-minute piece, you could call it, split up into sections entirely made out of Björk samples. And as a Björk fan myself, I've made a few videos about her now. You know, that was exciting to hear about and listen to. The other half, Jenny Death, featuring much more prominently guitars and rock music influences. And finally, they had 2016's Bottomless Pit, which kind of derived from all the different styles of music that they'd experimented with up until that point. And it's probably one of my favourite records by them. And the production really on that record was fantastic, and I really thought that they brought a lot to the table with that album. So yeah, and that brings us to the present day when the Year of the Snitch has been released. I think the first thing I want to say about it is that the production is a lot more lo-fi, a lot more sort of edgy than Bottomless Pit, which is sort of much more notably clean, with songs like Hothead and A and things like that, which were, you know, a nice, more smooth, clean sound to the band. Which I liked. So it's interesting to see them go down this different direction completely. And the run-up to this album consisted of sort of this drip-feeding singles. Firstly, we had Streaky, which kind of continued the sort of fashion that they'd gone with 2016's A. And that was a much more sort of pop direction. They were sort of almost playing with humour and things like that. And at first I was a little bit underwhelmed, I must admit, but in the context of the album, and this is what everyone's saying, this isn't a new point, it works a lot better. And the same can be said for the song Flies as well, which is notable for its very interesting descending chromatic pattern at the beginning of the song. It features all these whirling synths, and it's certainly an interesting track. I love the way, the structure of it, effectively, the way it's put together. Whilst we're talking about production, MC Ride's vocals are not nearly as clear on this album as they are on other albums. This is a much more instrumentally based album, and Ryd's vocals are seen more as a textural effect or an instrument of their own, as opposed to a way of conveying a message. Although the lyrics are still there, they're not as easy to listen to or to pick up, but they're there nonetheless. But yeah, this album is really about the interesting styles of production and the music that is delved into. The first track, Death Grips is Online, which was promoted by a series of tweets by the band that turned into a meme, features really weird shoegazy guitars at the start, which I quite like. I'm a big fan of like My Bloody Valentine and Ride and stuff like that, so it's interesting to see them playing with that influence. I can't make a word of what MC Ride is saying on this song because he's speaking so quickly. It's weird, it's jarring, it's a really weird way to start the album, but I love the sort of the underlying bass that keeps the track going and everything like that. And then of course the aforementioned Flies, which it flows into before probably the most well-received track, arguably. Perhaps not so much by me, as I'm not a massive fan of metal in general, but I am open to it, and I do enjoy a lot of that genre of music. In the track Black Paint, which is a very heavy cut on the album, and yeah, definitely critics are raving about it. I saw that Rolling Stone put it as one of the 15 songs of the summer, which is interesting considering it's Death Grips, you know. But nonetheless, the lyrics are fantastic on this track. The line about curtains at the start is really interesting. I like that one. Apparently they work with Tool's Justin Chancellor on this track, and obviously they work with the Shrek director Andrew Adamson on the track Dilemma, who does a little sort of spoken introduction to the track at the beginning, which is nice. I'm not sure how much it adds, but you know, yeah, bit of a change after Streaky, which is cool. I love the instrumental sections on this album. There are two cuts that do this, that don't have any lyrics, and those are the horn section and outro, which isn't actually the outro, it's track 12, there's one more after that, and I think they really add a lot, and they keep the album really sort of flowing. And I think one of the brilliant things about this album is how it's put together. It is really, you can tell that they've spent so much time thinking about the order that the tracks are going in and how they're going to transition from one track to the next. And when Flies and Black Paint were first released as singles, everyone was going crazy about the way that it flowed into one another, and the transition from Ha 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 to Shit Show to Streaky is wonderful, brilliant sort of 3-track section there. So yeah, it's a very enjoyable album, and as much as it is diverse and distracting and very weird, in some ways it is actually quite an easy listen. I don't know if that's just me and I've sort of got used to their sound. I certainly wouldn't recommend it to a newcomer who's just got into the sound. I'd recommend something like, I don't know, The Money Store or Bottomless Pit. But once you get into it and you get past that, the way that the structures are put together are moderately conventional, really. One song that they've really gone and thrown a left hook is The Fear, which is another track everyone's talking about. And it is distinctly different from pretty much everything else on this album. Very sort of jazzy almost, the jazz drumming coming into effect, showing the real variety of styles that Zach Hill is capable of playing here, and massive respect to him for that. And yeah, it's very creepy. It's a really weird track, you know. You could think about it being like as the background track for, I don't know, a horror movie, something like It, and the screaming that Ride puts across on this track is just, it makes you shiver. It's freaky. It's a freaky listen, and probably the least accessible track on this album, but nonetheless a very enjoyable one. At this point in their career, I see Death Grips almost sort of laughing at themselves a little bit, because people take them so seriously, and obviously that's the image that they've curated for themselves. But they're playing, they're having fun. I feel like this is a genuinely fun release, in spite of the fact you've got some really creepy tracks like Fear and Black Paint and things like that. As I said, Streaky, that just makes me laugh, the lyrics of those tracks. I don't think they're taking themselves too seriously on Ha Ha Ha, and I love the samples and things in that as well, the guitars and whatnot going in there. So as I say, I think it's a fun record, and I think it's moderately accessible as well. So it's enjoyable in its own way. It's a completely different angle on the Death Grips formula as such, not that you can really call it a formula, but it works, and I enjoy it a lot. We're going to talk about some disadvantages of the album, because I have kind of just praised it for the last few minutes, so, you know. I think the first thing to say is that there are a couple of moderately underwhelming tracks, in my opinion. I haven't really got into Little Richard, which is the 10th track. I'm not sure what's quite going on there. I think the flow of the album is maintained, but I don't think that adds anything new. And I would even say the same, as much as I hate to admit it, on Linda's in Custody, which was one of the standout tracks when I first listened to it. But the more I've got into this album, the less of an impact it's had on me. I think the other thing to note really is, as I keep saying, the production, as lo-fi and as edgy, edgy being a very vague term to describe it, as it is. I'm not sure again if that adds anything new to their sound, and in some ways I do prefer the cleaner sounding Crips, which really allows MC Ride to deliver some of his mind-blowing lyrics that he's capable of. And in a way it's a shame that he has sort of been relegated to a sort of more textural element of the band's sound there. And I'm not a massive fan of that, because I think Ride is a great lyricist and a great vocalist, and although he is allowed to really go crazy, especially towards the latter half of the album, as well as Black Paint, I feel like slightly underwhelmed by the amount of airtime he's given, and that's great because I don't mind hearing more of Zach and Andy, but at the same time, you know, I feel that MC Ride is in a way what makes Death Grips different from other music. I don't know, that's a controversial opinion, it's a bit of a hot take, so you know, if you disagree, put comments down below. So no, I'm not even sure if I agree with myself on that point, but there we go, I'm going to say it anyway. But overall, I did really enjoy Year of the Snitch. I think it's one of the best albums of the year so far. On this YouTube channel I got going up, so far I've mainly talked about albums that I've enjoyed actually. So I need to put some more critical reviews. So yeah, we're gonna lay into some people soon. But I just want to talk about the albums that I like, and you know what, I like this album. So here we are. I don't know. But anyway, in terms of scores, I would give Year of the Snitch an 8 out of 10. I think that's a fair score. An 8 out of 10. I wouldn't say it's their best record, but I certainly got a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I think the way it flows is fantastic. So there you go. And it's a testament to Death Grips as a whole that they're continuing to make such interesting, great music that doesn't rely on the same formula, and that they can put at different angles and try new things and yet remain as vital to modern music as I would argue that they are. So there you go, that's my thoughts on the new album. If you agree with me or disagree with me or have any other opinion, put it in the comments, you know, we'll talk about it, we'll have a chat. And if you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like and subscribe to see more reviews like this of other artists. And thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.